Continue with our discussion on case 4. We have already pulled out the data by successfully creating a single key out of two parameters that were being chosen. Now, we do need to, however, somehow ensure that the data being pulled out is dynamically linked to the year as well. The year changes, but the data doesn't, right? That's because in the column index number, we have put in 4, which is hard coded to a particular year. Right now, we need to make this 4 dynamic. How do we make this 4 dynamic? So either we can put up a table somewhere and try and pull up data from that table saying 2010 is 4, 2011 is 5, 12 is 6, and 13 is 7, and so on and so forth. Or what we could do is we could use a function that we have learned earlier, right? So we go to the organized data sheet, and if we use this function called match, right? So what does match do? Match finds out a particular value, lookup value, and its position in a particular array, right? So if I try and find out D5 in the array right from A5 to I15, what do we see? We see the value as 4, right? If I freeze this and drag it on the right side, I think this should solve our problem. We should get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 whenever we're choosing match as a function, right? So I can delete this here. I can go to the dashboard and I can start typing match, and the lookup value would be the first year that gets selected, and the lookup array would be on organized data. This entire row of headers is the lookup array. Remember, we'll have to take it from the first available value, is because we want the data to throw the exact column where the year selected is, right? So that gives us 4, and if I drag it down, we'll get 5, 6 as well, right? So if we can now somehow link this 4 to the data here in the VLOOKUP, then that should solve the problem for us, correct? So what do? We go and select this, double click this, and select the entire formula starting from match. Do not select the equals to. Select the formula starting from match and copy this. Control C, copy this formula. Now press escape, get out of this cell, get into the VLOOKUP formula, right? Press escape, get out of the cell, get into the VLOOKUP formula. Instead of column index number being 4, just paste the value here, right? So we are pasting the value. Just effectively go and paste the value in this column index number cell. Once we paste the value in this column index number cell, you see it starts throwing out the answer as 4, right? So it is effectively giving us 4 based on the cell that we had selected. All we have done is put in the match formula within the VLOOKUP column index number area, and that gives us the data. Click on OK, it stays where it is. Now if I change the year to 2011, the data changes, right? The data changes, and we can go into the VLOOKUP formula and see that column index number now throws 5, which is the match function, which is the column for 2011 as a year, right? So it works fine. I can now technically delete these. We don't need these, and we are done with the data. The data is available. All we need to do is drag it downwards. We need to ensure that the cell we are looking up for is frozen. B14 here should be frozen, and the data we are looking up should also be frozen. The only thing that is not frozen is the year in each of the rows that we are looking at. That changes when you drag the formula down. That's relevant, but now we have data available for a particular year, starting that year for 3 years after that, and you change the parameter, it automatically changes the data. You change the year, it will automatically change the data that comes out of that, right? So we can get cement, we can get cement sales, we can change the year. What we have now is a completely dynamic table that is available with us. This is what we really wanted. Now we have the data. The CEO has the option of choosing whatever parameter, whatever subsidiary, whatever year, and the data is available out here in this particular table, right? Now we need to create a chart out of it, which is not a very difficult process. Select the entire data, click on insert. When you click on insert, you see recommended charts here. We can choose any chart, but let's choose line chart because that seems simpler for analysis. So let's choose a line chart. Let's choose a simple 2D line chart. When you choose this 2D line chart, you see there is a problem that starts coming in because you selected the entire data. It is representing not only the cement sales here, but also the years 2010, 11, and 12 here, whereas they should be ideally on the horizontal axis somewhere here. So when I'm choosing the data, it automatically projects both the data points as values that come there. We don't need one of them, so we need to remove that. How do we go about solving it? Right. So the first thing we do is right click on the chart, select data. Right. When you look at the select data, you do not need the data on years here. So you select year and you click on remove. Once you select year and you click on remove, you will note in the background that now you don't have years displayed here in your chart. Years is gone out. Earlier you had a blue line on years. Now there is no line on years. Years is gone. You only have cement sales which is available, right? Now you also want years to come on the horizontal axis instead of 1, 2, and 3, which is available here, horizontal category axis labels. You want 2010, 11, 12. So what do? Click on edit. It says axis label range, and you can select these three cells, 10, 11, 12. The moment you do that, you will note in your formula, in your chart, the cells change to 2010, 11, 12, and you have Siemens sales available. We can click on OK. We can click on OK. It automatically puts the header there as well, because now there is only one set of data available. The header comes from this particular cell. Now, one thing that we see is that cement sales is mentioned here, and because we are only plotting one data point, we don't necessarily need to put the legend here. I can select the legend and delete it. That goes out of our discussion points. Let's reduce the size a little bit. Let's try and see what else can be done. If we want, we can remove the grid lines as well, and it looks simpler to appear here as data. We can add data labels and say what is the value. We can select this and format data labels and say they need to be either right or left, or where do they come. So we can select below as data labels. So data labels are available. You can close this, and that gives us the chart that we needed. Now if you select cement sales, instead of cement you choose food and beverage sales, the chart title should change. The sales should also change. If you select infrastructure sales, the chart title and the chart entries on the axis should change, and you should get the data along with that. You can take it on the right side. If you want to kind of see the changes, we'll reduce the size a little bit. Even if you change the year, that should automatically start plotting out data for multiple years. We see infrastructure has consistently fallen all these years, but a jump in this year has happened. You can change it to net profit and see what's happening to net profit. The data available is in terms of decimals, and that's why that was being displayed as decimals. So that's a problem of the data availability. We can go there and change the format of the data, and it'll appear in the correct format here. And similarly, we could look at media net profit, which is negative. You see automatically the axis goes above, and the chart gets plotted below that axis with minus numbers coming in, right? Uh, so that's basically a dynamic chart. We can try and choose market share as well. Now here, because the format was defined as numbers, it will show as 0.1 and 0.11 and 0.12 instead of 12% and 10%. Everything else, however, does function absolutely dynamically. As you choose the values, the chart will get displayed directly, right? That's our discussion in terms of how do we go about creating a completely dynamic chart. If we were to change any of the data points, headers, values, everything changes for that particular year, right? And for that particular chart. So we get all the data points consistently plotted dynamically on this particular chart. However, there is a small problem. You can only plot one parameter. You can only plot one parameter and you can only plot one subsidiary. So you can plot one subsidiary and one parameter in this chart. That's the way it is created, because VLOOKUP will throw out only one value, and that's what we have plotted here. Now suppose the CEO wanted to check cement and food and beverages, the sales for both of these in one chart, and see whether one is growing and the other is falling, right? That's unfortunately not available in this solution with us. For that, we will have to look at another solution. Let's try and find out what that solution would be, where we can try and use multiple items to get a sense of all of them in one chart. This chart cannot solve that. This chart is completely dynamic, but only to the extent of choosing one parameter and one subsidiary for which that parameter is looked at, right? In our next section, we're going to extend our attention towards a chart which can be used on, let's say, two subsidiaries or more than one subsidiary, multiple subsidiaries, single parameter, right? You could use multiple parameters as well, but let's try first with multiple subsidiaries, single parameter, and let's see if that makes sense, if that works, right? That will be in the next section.